Hello and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to do something a little fun, a little bit different. We've never done this before, but I think that this could be a lot of fun. This could be a series, we'll see. But we are going to have a stereotype showdown. Yes, I'm very excited. What we're going to do is we are going to rank the 16 types based on their stereotypes as to who would be the most likely to survive a quarantine. We are going to take into account many different factors, but without further ado, there's very little introduction needed. Let's go ahead and rank these guys up. They can go from as low as a D, meaning the most likely to not survive, to an S, meaning the most likely to survive, aka God tier. So let's go ahead and find out who is going to survive the apocalypse. Now these are randomly in some kind of order. I've used memes to represent each type, so I mean, we're just going full-on stereotypes just all the way. All right, let's start. Oh wow, we're starting with a real good runner. We're gonna start with the ENFJ. The ENFJ really cares about other people, but also wants to kind of tell other people what to do. So I would imagine that an ENFJ is corralling the people around them, telling them how to survive the quarantine, telling them how to have fun during the quarantine. I imagine that an ENFJ is going to have a channel very soon telling us all hacks to surviving the quarantine. And also, I think they're going to take this as an opportunity to get onto that soapbox and tell us how we all need to change. I mean, hashtag relate. But alas, the ENFJ is going to survive out of sheer need to survive because they need to make a point. So we're going to say, I'm not going to say they're quite B tier. They're definitely higher than B tier. Let's go ahead and make them A tier. And we'll rank them up against each other even within the said tiers. So who's next? Okay, it looks like ENFP is next, riding a unicorn. So here's the thing about ENFPs. We are the most introverted extroverts, so that by proxy is already gonna make us a little bit higher on a tier. However, one of our biggest stereotypes is that we are not clean. Don't look at my house right now. Well, you can look at the rest of the house. Don't look at my room. We're probably not very likely to survive a quarantine just because, I mean, we are not the cleanest and we also have the need for other people. We're not like the worst because we would be creative and find ways to go about things. But the thing is, we're not the cleanest, so we're very likely to catch something. Because we're not clean, we've probably caught a lot. I'm gonna put us at C tier for now. Next, we have the ENTJ, and I chose this meme because it is just hilarious. You guys have probably seen this meme, but alas. Oh, I apparently chose the same meme style for two types. That's okay. I'll be able to tell them apart. So the ENTJ. The ENTJ. They're very forceful with what they think is right. They have had a plan. These are the guys, the ENTJs, these are the ones that are going to go out to the stores and raid the stores once the apocalypse hits. So the quarantine might be a little difficult for them, but if it turns into an apocalypse, they'd be pretty good to survive. I'm going to put them right in the middle. I don't think they have quite the survival factor of the ENFJ because ENFJ has to survive, right? The ENTJ is not trying to prove any points. They want to survive for their own purposes, but they're also likely to do some dumb stuff because they want to have control and that might not be the best for them. Next we have the ENTP. It's a pretty tight call who's going to be worse, the ENFP or the ENTP. I mean, we're both terribly unclean. But the ENTP would have done more research about it, so we're gonna put the ENTP above the ENFP. Not quite to the tier above, because let's be frank, if if we got the germs on us, we're getting sick. Next, we have ESFJ. Now, I imagine that an ESFJ is going to be a nurse. So they're already at a high risk factor. Now, they really want to take care of people, and they're going to be the person that, despite the quarantine rules, they're really good about following the rules, but despite the quarantine rules, they're going to try to see their friends to take care of them. They're going to bring soup, they're going to bring food. They're going to die because you know what? They're being too nice. They're helping out too many people. They're going to the hospital to do their job. I mean, we just have a lot of reasons why they're not going to survive. If they happen to make it, if they were to nurse, maybe they'd make it. But I think that they would want to go too much to their friends' places to get them. Next, we have the ISFJ, who's also a nurse, but they don't need quite as much to help other people. They're going to be clean. They're going to follow all the rules. I'm actually going to put them B tier. I don't know if they'd fully survive. They're still a nurse. They're still in high risk factor. They're in the same level of risk factor as the ENTJ. Who do I think would survive better than each other? You know, I think the ISFJ would do better than the ENTJ. Oh goodness, now we have the ESFP. I chose this meme because it's a guy saying, I wish I was at a party. The ESFP is probably, I mean, both the ESPs are less likely to survive than the ENPs just because they're more extroverted. They're gonna want to go to the parties. They're gonna want to be all into that kind of stuff. I think that they have a very low probability of surviving the quarantine. They are the most extroverted extroverts, besides maybe the ESTP, and they're going to want to be out and about. They're going to get depressed, and there's just no way. They're definitely at the bottom. Next, we have the ESTJ. The ESTJ is a huge rule follower. They're going to be the ones that are enforcing the quarantine. So they're going to get shot because they're telling other people what to do. They still might survive for a little bit, but it's because they're telling other people what to do and to follow the rules and don't buy more than 2 packs of toilet paper. I feel like they're going to die pretty soon, but I also feel like they're going to survive for a little while. Is it worse than the ENFPs, though? I don't think so. I think that they're going to piss off some people, just like the ENTJ. I think that they're going to survive better than the... No, they're going to do worse than the ENTJ. All right. Next, we have ESTP. This meme specifically says one does not restrain the ESTP, which I think well sums what an ESTP is. I feel like they have the least chance of survival because, first of all, like I said with the ESFP, one of the most extroverted types. Second, they hate people telling them what to do. They actually might be the ones to shoot the ESTJ. Like, let's be real. They're probably the ones that are gonna start the fight. So they're the lowest chance of survival. Like, let's be real, pretty darn low chance of survival. Next, we have the INFJ. And the INFJ is going to see the conspiracy behind all this. They're going to preach. They're going to start a cult. And in all honesty, they're probably going to lead that cult. And the ENFJ, they want to survive to change the world. The INFJ is changing the world while they're surviving because they're like, guys, listen, this is what's going on. This is the huge conspiracy. Let's band together. Let's survive. And they're going to be surrounded by so many people trying to protect them. And they're going to be smart about that distance rule. They don't need to be constantly in physical contact with people, but they do want the validation. So if they're going to be the cult leaders from the YouTubes. They're going to be the ones with like the end of days. They're just going to build a cult. Like, let's be real. They're going to build a cult. Next, we have the INFP. Now, the INFP, just sheerly by not leaving their house, probably higher on the survival list than even an ENFP because they don't really need the interpersonal one-on-one, they do, but they can get that online, right? They're not very clean, but they're cleaner than an ENFP and ESTP. They're not going to really run into any of these three types. The only thing that might get them is depression for the way that the world is going. So if they can make it through the depression, they have a high chance of survival. But the depression is what really is going to bring them down a tier. I think that they're going to do better than the ISFJ because they're not a nurse, like they're home. Should they be A tier though? I think they would be because they just sheerly are not going to see anyone. This next meme, pretty classic. One does not simply tell an INTJ they did not plan enough. The INTJ saw this coming years ago. The INTJ has a bunker in their backyard filled with stuff, and they're already in the bunker. They're surviving the apocalypse. They're locked in there. They have a 10-year plan. They're going to survive sheerly because they've planned for this inevitability. More so than the INFJ, because they don't need the followers. They don't need that stuff. They'll be fine alone in that place. They're fine. Next, we have the INTP. Now, the INTP more than likely would survive pretty well in the quarantine apocalypse situation. The only thing that I fear is that if they do leave their house, they're not very trustworthy to stay clean. But if they never leave their house, they're definitely going to survive. There's plenty of stuff on the internet, but if the internet goes down, the INTP is really going to suffer unless they have a lot of books in their house. But if they do, they're going to run out of books and they're going to get bored and they're going to be frustrated. But overall, I do think they have a pretty good chance of survival. Now, would they be better than the INFP? They would, because they'd be less likely to get depressed. That's the only thing that puts them above the INFP. All right, next we have the ISFP. And this meme I thought was pretty perfect. You can't see it because it's so tiny, but essentially it says, I was gonna do the dishes, but then someone told me how to do it. This is the exact same thing with washing their hands. They were gonna wash their hands, they were gonna be clean, but someone told them how to do it. So they've pretty much bumped themselves down in tier sheerly because they're being told what to do, and that don't stand. They're introverts, so they'll probably survive better than the ENF or ENPs. But they don't like being told what to do, and that's gonna really be a harsh damper on them. Next, we have the ISTJ. Talk about the #1 rule follower. Talk about the kind of person who can totally be fine on their own endlessly. They have all their memories to relive through. Like, they're never going to get bored. They're really not going to have many struggles. They've also, like the INTJ, planned ahead for this purely because they've seen way too many apocalypse survival movies. So they're also going to have a high chance of survival. I really want to put them in S tier. They're going to be close to the INTJ. Are they going to be better than the INTJ? Because they've planned for this as well, and they're really good at following the rules. See, yes, I think they would be better than the INTJ purely for this. The INTJ is going to lose awareness of the external world. And is more likely to let in a stranger. Here's my reasoning for this. You might say, whoa, the INTJ would never let in a stranger. That's not smart. Here's the reason why. The INTJ is more likely to see potential in a stranger than an ISTJ. This is purely because as an intuitive, they're going to be a little bit more open-minded to something new coming in than an ISTJ. Not by much, but by a little bit. And finally, we have the ISTP. This is a person who doesn't even know the apocalypse is happening because they're so held up on their own. They're probably living out in the woods. They're not affected by this at all. The only thing that might bring them down is their ability to keep clean, but because the fact that they haven't really kept clean through most of their life, they have a pretty darn good immune system. And since they have a really good immune system, their chances of survival are quite high. Are they better than the STJ or the NJs? Honestly, most God tier survival, ISTP. I'm calling it. So we found our order, folks. This is the order in which people are going to die in the apocalypse. The first to die, ESTP, then ESFP, then ESFJ. Then we're going to have ENFPs, ENTPs, and ISFPs fallen out pretty shortly after. Then we're going to have the ESTJs, ENTJs, and ISFJs dying because now that the world is going crazy, that's just not their cup of tea. Then the people most likely to survive just purely because they didn't leave their house are the INFP and the INTP. The ENFJ would survive out of sheer willpower in order to tell everybody how they need to be different. The INFJ built their cult, the INTJ and ISTJ had their bunker, and the ISTP never even was affected by the quarantine to begin with. He's off in his own little world in the middle of the woods, not affected by any of it. It would really take a lot for him even to see another human being, let alone a sick human being. And even still, his immune system is that of a titan, just way insanely overpowered. So there you have it. There's our tier list of the 16 personalities surviving a quarantine. What do you think about my tier ranking? Do you have any disagreements? Do you feel like maybe I overshot some of these people's abilities or undershot these abilities? Do you feel like your type should be a little higher? Do you feel like your type should be a little lower? What do you think? What's wrong with my tier ranking and what's right about my tier ranking? I mean, obviously I'm 100% the resource for who is the best, so, I won't listen to your opinion, but you could give it. If you guys like this video and want to see more, let me know because this was actually a lot of fun for me. I really enjoyed ranking the different types in this kind of situation. I have some other ideas for how we might do some ranking, so if that's something you're interested in, let me know down in the comments and we can see about doing another one. But with that, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a beautiful, amazing, fantastic day. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to support me and my channel and what I do here. Hit me up on Patreon. But either way, I hope that you're doing well in this quarantine, and I hope that you are not actually living up to this tier. I want us all to survive. Thank you guys so much, and I really wish you all the best. Bye-bye!